Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, beautiful soul, wherever you are in this beautiful world. This is the angel lady Terrie Marie, and we're back with another. Well, this is a good friend of mine, so he's also amazing. Otherwise, I'm getting a little silly already. However, the energy is really high. We've been chitter-chattering a little bit, and Kent and I have known each other for a couple of years, and I'm absolutely thrilled that he has created time in his very busy schedule to help us, to be here with us. So allow me to introduce him because I can already feel the energies just going bazonkers. That's already trying to get in here. So without further ado, Kent Steigerwald is a dynamic entrepreneur, business coach and mentor, marketing strategist and financial consultant to heart-centered, transformational entrepreneurs, business owners, and startup companies. Kent is the founder and CEO of KS Coaching and Consulting Group, which specializes in helping transformational coaches, consultants, experts, and service professionals to exponentially grow their businesses by generating a flood of high-ticket clients on demand, 2 to 10 times increase in revenue, while leveraging proven automated marketing systems so they work much less and enjoy more time and money freedom. How cool is that? As an entrepreneur, Kent believes there's no better mechanism than owning a business to provide opportunities to expand your being, have a deeper sense of meaning and purpose while providing a platform to express yourself through creativity and service. Kent truly believes that any one individual with a big vision can have a powerful impact on the world by tapping into their true purpose and sharing their unique gifts with the world. Hello and welcome, my friend. How are you today?
So good. Thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction. Already.
So please tell us about your journey, how you got from where you were to where you are. If memory serves, you were at one time in the corporate world, and so you've been able to make that transition.
Yes, absolutely. I have more a traditional sort of business background and went to school for business and really spent a lot of time in the corporate world. And like you said, I did consulting for the corporate world and I've been an executive in the corporate world, Silicon Valley companies, and I actually consulted for a lot of companies in Silicon Valley as well. And I did finance and I did marketing and I did a lot of that stuff. But it really, I'm a little bit older now, but it really, after a while, it didn't have a lot of meaning to me. And I started to really actually look for something that was going to fulfill my soul and give me a lot more meaning in what I was doing, especially through the vocation and through my business.
Okay.
So
go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. Absolutely.
I was going to say, how did you make that transition? Because, even for those of us who aren't in the corporate world, they may or may not be making tremendously fabulous salaries. And whatever level of the salary or money that people are making, how do they take that? How did you take that leap mentally, emotionally, all the energy wise, to just go, okay, and pull the plug? Because that's scarier than you know what.
It really is, and it really was. So I think a lot of people this happens a lot. And so people, if they get too deep into their career, they really think that they can't make that leap. They can't take that leap of faith. But when the sort of like their mission and their feeling that they have to do something else because they're not happy sort of starts to overwhelm that, then you really start to formulate a plan. So how I did it was, there was the part where I had to save some money in my bank account. And really, it was just a matter of literally pulling the plug. It was a scary day that I did that, but it was also a lot of freedom that came with that. And I just basically said I'm kind of done with this, and I have such faith in my future and in myself to start my own business and go and help small businesses, which was a little bit different than what I've been doing. It really was almost like a matter of faith. I kind of took the jump, and I knew I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but I knew the net would appear.
And the word I'm getting is how buoyant was that net? I mean, it's easy to say to do that, and yet, to also say it's scary is just doesn't even
begin to
cover it, because it's like, oh, holy, you know what? Now what?
I I like the facial because that's what it is. That's a really good question, because there was definitely a lot of free falling, and I'm like, where is that net? And that I always say that with starting your own business, I had been in business as a consultant, but I had clients that had kept, hired me year after year, and it was still kind of like the corporate world. So still independent, but not independent like this. And I always tell people, and I tell my clients, like, when you start your own business, it's like a course in personal development, and you will figure it out, because you will have to figure it out, and you'll have to figure it out much sooner than later. So it's challenging, and I never want to say that to anyone who's listening that it's easier said than done, because to your point, it is you have the holy what moments going through it, but I think that it really makes you dig into who you are, right? And really, and you're going to have challenges. I mean, that would be an understatement, as you probably know. How you persevere through those challenges is kind of what makes you the person, kind of made me the person that I am today.
Tell us, would you mind sharing a couple of those challenges, and maybe some of the ones that you've helped your clients through, to just give our listeners and our viewers an idea of, because everyone's different and they'll resonate with different messages. So I'm going to talk about a couple that I know are really predominant in the entrepreneurial world today, and I see it with my clients all the time, and I still have it to some extent. So one is like dealing with imposter syndrome, which is really far more prevalent, I think, than most people think. And some people don't even know to give it a name, but it actually has a name. You could Google it, imposter syndrome. And it's really coming to terms with your own expertise. And I find that, especially when businesses are just starting out, you're just starting out in your business, that you end up questioning yourself a lot. Like, who am I to do this? Or who am I to do that? What makes me an expert? I've only been doing this for a year. And all these sort of questions that your ego throws at you to some extent. And it really stops a lot of people dead in their tracks, right? It's something very difficult to deal with, because I've read that even some of the most famous people, celebrities, right, and deal with this every day. There's this inherent fear that you're going to be found out for something that you've just been posing as this person. And so I find that a lot of experts, coaches, consultants, people in this space, in the entrepreneurial space, deal with this. And not only in the beginning stages where it's really rough, but definitely further down the road. And I think that we all deal with it to some extent. And that's where you really have to start of dig in and realize what your unique qualities are, your unique gifts. And there is no one else on earth like you. And to me, I tell my clients this all the time, that is what makes you the expert. You don't need to be crowned an expert by anybody. You need to crown yourself as the expert. Yes, absolutely. You touched on something that I often share with my own students and clients, is when you get to that next level, the same junk otherwise known as crap, faces you, and you bump up against it, and it can get frustrating and stressful because you thought, well, I already dealt with that, but it's at a different level, and so the same stuff comes up, but not sometimes as intensely and sometimes not. How did you you brought okay you brought up some really famous people, entrepreneurs and whatnot, who go through that and they bump up against their own ceiling, even though they raise it, and then there's a new ceiling. So how does that imposter syndrome come up again and again? Why does it, if someone's already dealt with it at where they are and then they get to the next level? Does that make any sense? I feel like I'm rambling.
Totally makes sense. And I think the distinction here is that there are different levels, right? And as you develop as a human being and a person, and you sort of become more of your natural self, maybe, or as you progress in your performance, there's a lot of different ways people measure their own personal development. So probably not doing any justice, but there's a never ending sort of like arrangement of levels almost.
Okay.
There's never, in this lifetime at least, there's never a time where you've topped out and you're like, I'm done. A lot of people do that. And that's where they plateau and they basically stop. But to put it in a nice way, there's always another level up that you can go to, another level of joy, another level of performance, another level of being and doing, for that matter. Okay. And each of those brings its own level. It's almost kind of like you hit the plateau, and when you hit that ceiling of that first level, and you go into that next level, it brings a whole nother set of requirements, and it brings a whole different level of who you need to be to perform at that level. And that brings the imposter syndrome for that level right back. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Absolutely. Because as your income increases and your client base increases, whether you're working for somebody else and you're on commission base or whatever, then you need people to help support you. Then you've got that. It's like, oh my God, who am I going to hire? Am I going to do it right? Do I have enough money? La, 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 and yada, yada, yada. So it makes a lot of sense. When we bump up to the next level, there's another set of stuff that comes with it. How have you dealt with that in your own business growth, Kent?
Well, that's a really good question. The good thing is I do have that background in corporate where I had led, so one example you said is as we expand our business, one thing that comes up is you need to start leading people, whether it be your clients, your tribe, and or your team. You have to become a leader, and that's to be able to have a vision for your business. And even if you have that vision, you have to get other people to buy into that vision. And right. So then it becomes like, wow, before I was a solopreneur, or before I was just outsourcing some things here and there, but now I'm got to take a higher level of responsibility as a leader in my space, a leader for my tribe, a leader for my team. And that's a whole different mindset level of performance in and of itself. And so for me personally, I have no problem with that part because I've led big teams before. Right. But I think the challenge becomes to understand what the requirements are at that level and really, again, dig deep into who you are. And always, one thing I always, share with my clients and my folks is always make sure that you're keeping that vision in front of you. As long as you have a really big vision of where you're headed, that's kind of like your beacon of light. That's kind of like your guiding light. And as long as you keep that in front of you, and when things just kind of get crazy, you got to reset, you got to reground, and you got to realize, okay, that's where I'm headed. And what level and who do I need to be and how do I need to perform at this particular level to break through some of those challenges?
Okay, so you already know I'm getting downloads from my guys. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, just a second. um, what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way on how to either work with it? See, you're in a unique position. You came from the corporate world, so you have a lot of this experience as how to manage those. But how have you coached your clients in some of these lessons learned kind of a things? Because you learned them in the corporate world, so it was just a matter of, okay, now you're totally on your own. How do you go from being in the corporate world to being a solopreneur? And then once you got that, see, it's easy for you to be climbing back up because you've already got that pathway. That's the question. Thank you. So how do you help your clients create that neural pathway to hire?
From being the solopreneur to that sort of next level? That's a really, really good question. It really depends on the individual. I mean, that's when I'm working with my client, I really, everyone's unique. But if I were to say, how would I apply that to clients in general? I always make sure I'm in touch with who they really are. And by that they understand or they really embrace that they actually have a higher purpose and that their business is that vehicle for that purpose.
Okay.
And so frame it sort of that way, then I basically say, look, I've always said this to my clients is you and your business are inseparable. Your business often reflects who you are as a person and where you're at. And to make that, I guess, to get those neural pathways, first of all, you have to be able to manage yourself, right? And there's a lot of what I find is it's just when we're solopreneurs, even if we're running a team, each has its separate level of challenges. But what, as you probably know, and I think everybody who knows as an entrepreneur, we get overwhelmed. There's so much going on. There's so much marketing we have to do. There's so much stuff that we have to do, and we have checklists. And so it's a matter of managing ourselves, and it's not like time management. It's really understanding what's important and what's not important, and what you should be doing versus other people should be doing. Okay. And so it's a matter of keeping that vision, understanding their purpose, but really stripping away the layers to what really, really matters. And I find that's where people are able to make leaps and bounds in their business, is because they understand, and I help them to understand what is really important. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. What's really important versus what is just a lot of noise and chatter and task lists and things.
Okay.
It's kind of like a day-to-day management of it. But really, it's really always getting in touch with their purpose and what they're really trying to accomplish in their business, and more importantly, who they're trying to serve, and becoming of service. And then all that other stuff is almost like on the side you have to manage as well. So.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to use me as an example without going too much into things. I used to make a detailed plan of what to do on what day, and that worked out pretty well. I don't know why I got away from it, but I did. That doesn't mean I get to do everything on my list every day, but at least I have a plan, and within that foundation, then I'm free to flow with it. So I just recently started that, and I actually found that I've gotten more done than the other way. It's like, okay, I had this idea for the week. Okay, what am I doing today? And I took like about an hour and a half or so last week, Sunday, and mapped out for the rest of March, which we're almost done with. So it's time to get ready for April. But, some people like to schedule their time in increments. That I don't do because that makes me nuts. But how have you been able to work your lists, your tasks, because you're doing all kinds of amazing things. So how do you manage that for yourself?
It's, that was a learning process in and of itself, because I think, and one thing that really happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially once we're starting out, right, we get shiny silver spoon syndrome because everybody's waving the next greatest marketing thing in front of us, and we run off and go, oh, that's what I should be doing, or that's what I should be doing. And the problem is you got to shut all that off at some point, right? You've got to, at some point, what you need to do. And so that's kind of like a starting is turn off the outside chatter, turn off the outside noise. Doesn't mean you can't join a program, but join one program. Don't join 10. Don't follow 10 gurus. Follow one if you follow any at all. Sometimes I say just shut it all off. Once you know what you think you should be doing, it's a matter of prioritizing. And really, this is what I help my clients with because I'm a strategist by nature. So strategy is a higher level of what needs to be done. It's the 1-year plan. It's the 6-month plan. It's the 3-month plan. And what I always do for myself is I reverse engineer. So if I start with an annual goals, I'll back everything back into the 90-day periods and kind of like what needs to be done in the next 90 days and come up with an overall theme or strategy for that 90 days, and then engineer everything backwards from there. By week, maybe by day. I have a whole system around that, to be honest, that I teach people. But I really think it's kind of what I said before. It's a matter of understanding what's really, really important, because following the 80-20 rule, it's 20% of what 20% of your effort is going to cause 80% of your results, which I think is something that all business owners and people even managing their normal lives keep in mind, because if you want to know what is that 20% I should be doing, you should let the other stuff go, or delegate it, or it's not the priority on your list today or even this week.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So I'm being nudged to ask you, you gave us one very important, I think not just important, but significant, the imposter syndrome. What one other overall, I know it's a generality, but what one other challenge have you found most common, or what most people experience?
So there's imposter syndrome, which is it's kind of the questioning yourself, questioning your own expertise. Can I really help my clients? And I kind of all put that under imposter syndrome, because anybody who's serving clients, I think we all have those thoughts like, oh, if you really care about your clients, then you're like, oh, I got to make sure I get them results, which is true. But I think it plagues our mind more than it should. The other big one, I think, is just fear. Okay. I would break it down as, because if we're to strip it down into big buckets of things, I think fear covers fear of failure, fear of success, which I actually think is more prevalent than fear of failure. And a lot of people don't understand that. And then fear, and then all of those things, if they kind of branch off and they start to stop you from doing what you need to be doing. It could be fear of putting yourself out there. Sometimes that's related to imposter syndrome, but oftentimes it's related to other fears, which is fear of ridiculed, or fear, the more you put yourself out there, you're becoming vulnerable. And I find that is the other big chunk that really affects entrepreneurs like you, me, and our clients, and entrepreneurs in general. And I would put it under the bucket of fear. And I actually think fear of success is bigger than maybe fear of failure. Failure to me is just, I always say, it's testing. It's not, I'm testing. And I think that's a really great approach to use, because that's what you're doing. You're trying different things. Of course, they're going to fail. And you're just, as long as you fail forward, as they say, I say, I'm just testing. Right. And I'll find out eventually what works. And then in this business, that's kind of what you have to do. But fear of success is one that I think a lot of people are like, what? Well, why would I fear success? Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's where we go back to, you have to dig into who you are as a person and go, well, why do I fear success? My take on that, and just my take, but what I've experienced and what I've dealt with myself and my own experience and my clients, is that fear of success is fear of your own power, and
Ooh,
fear of that you're going to find out how powerful you actually are.
okay.
And,
Wow.
a lot of people would say, wow, that's crazy. I would never even think like that. Well, you do. It's just subconscious. Um, and they're afraid to become too powerful because there's a lot of things that go with that. There's friends that you may lose. There's family
Yeah.
members that you may lose. And we have a lot of attachments to very strong emotional attachments to certain things that we fear secretly that we're going to lose if we become powerful. People are going to look at you different. And it
I
brings a whole different.
absolutely agree with you because there are things, as my business is growing, it's like, okay, well, I can afford to do a little bit more. And it's not about living above my means or being flashy. And yet that's exactly part of what the ego chitter chatter goes, well, who do you think you are going to want a car like that? It's like, well, why not? I didn't say I was going to buy a new one and spend 100 grand, right? you know, but even if I did that, but the mind is like, well, what will your parents say? I mean, they're telling you to buy a Honda, and it's like, but I don't like Hondas. No offense to Honda people. Don't write me emails, okay? Don't make me comments. But you get the idea. And people like certain things, and why not celebrate your success? I mean, what if you like to go to a certain restaurant once a week or something? That's an extravagance, or can be. You were talking what, 12, 15, $20 a week, which can be a lot of money. And so the conscious mind, see, it's even trying to prevent me from saying it, is trying to trip you up and say, well, you should really be saving that money for something else. What do you find that this is a truth when you try to save money? Now, there's a difference between setting money aside and restricting yourself. And when you restrict yourself, doesn't that restrict the flow of other things, not just the money piece?
Absolutely.
Can you speak to us about that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. It restricts the flow of abundance. So I agree. I'm a pretty conservative person. So there's almost like three factors here. One
Okay.
is that people get concerned about what other people will think.
Right.
And frankly, that's something you could just shift your mind to not pay attention to. It's not easy to do that. I've learned to do it recently, and I know some tricks to do that, but it's, advanced Jedi mind trick stuff. But basically, you're creating your reality. It's your world, right? And I'm not so worried about other people. I think a lot of people are concerned, your fear of being judged, or what if I drive this brand new BMW? So what, right? They might be jealous, they might harbor feelings, but that's their world, right? That's not your world. So that's one. It's like I just dismiss that, kind of like, hey, that's their reality and not my reality. My reality is the one I have to deal with, and it's really between me and myself and what I feel comfortable with. I totally agree that you should celebrate successes, and that does not mean that you need to do it in a material sense. I do believe that you have to reward your mind for accomplishing things and reward yourself and pamper yourself, because if you don't do it, no one else will. So there's that part. And there's the balance between doing that and rewarding yourself for success and then letting your ego run away with you and doing something that's kind of crazy. But, as long as, because you're going to always have that chitter chatter in your head, like, oh, you should save that money. Oh, you should do this. But that's coming from a lack mindset. That's coming from there will not be enough in the future mindset. So as much as you could tap into the flow, but keep it real. That would be what I'd say is the balance, right? Always be sort of pampering and rewarding yourself for your successes, because we tend to beat ourselves up more than anything. And I think that's very detrimental.
Yeah.
to our progress. And so I'm always saying you have to reward yourself for every little goal, every little thing, even on a daily basis, because that's what propels you forward and gives you confidence that you can keep moving forward. It doesn't have to be material. But I think the balance is between rewarding yourself and letting that get out of control. But I also feel like people actually know where that balance is for themselves. I feel like
I
sometimes they
agree.
want us to corroborate and kind of agree, but you should never ask the outside world what they think, because they're not the ones who should be telling you.
That's true. And a lot of my clients, and I learned that in the past for myself more than once, is that the more powerful your vision, the more powerful your dream, and the more powerful your passion to bring this to light, that's how much more you should keep it sacred. And
Uh,
because all it's going to take is one wrong base, right? Or one wrong, are you sure that's what you want to do? You go, and then you second guess yourself, and you got enough of your own stuff to go through without somebody else's on top of yours.
I totally agree. And that's sort of the point that I'm trying to make, is that, it's hard to do sometimes, but the key is there's certain things you should keep to yourself, right? If someone wants to talk about the car you drive, so be it. Be fine. And be like, you know what? I exude success. I exude confidence, right? If I want to drive a nice BMW, that's my choice, right? Let them have their issues, and if they're jealous or everything, but those are all negative emotions, so let that stay in their world. Just don't let it penetrate yours. But I also agree with what you just said, is do not, in the first place, don't open yourself up to having people comment. And what's funny is, I'll share a quick personal story, is I'm in the process of going to the next level of my being right now. And I'm going through the ceiling, so to speak, from one level to the next. And
Right.
at this point, it's very interesting what happens. Besides, you sort of like come up against resistance and things like that, you have to actually make some really conscious choices. And those conscious choices are, I may no longer want to associate with this person, and not from an egotistical, I'm better than them perspective. It's their, how do I want to say this? It's that they're not in alignment with where I'm headed. And so the whole idea is, you're going to find new people at that next level who are going to come into your world, and all will be grand and all will be awesome. But you have to decide at each level. And what's funny is, I thought you had just brought up a really good point, is I've decided to hold my cards closer to my chest, so to speak.
Yes.
And what I'm not really going to start sharing. I have such a big vision that it almost scares me, and it excites me, but it's huge, right? It's a huge vision. And I am realizing that it's not worth verbalizing this vision to anyone, because there is no one on earth who could probably understand the vision other than myself. And so if you start communicating stuff out like that, you kind of open yourself up, not for attack, but for people to comment. And to your, our ego mind and sort of the balance of what's happening within us is very fragile. And like, I think you just brought up a really good point. The last thing we need is more doubt in our brain, and little triggers on the inside. If you haven't really, mastered how to manage those triggers, best way to do is manage nothing on the outside triggers you anymore. But if you haven't really mastered that, one little thing can trigger you into a form of self-doubt, and you can start falling back down the ladder, so to speak.
Yes.
And so it becomes a balance of, you really need to manage all of that. And like I said, hold your cards maybe a little closer to your chest, and realize it's your vision. And some people are naturally going to want to pull you back down. Basically because they don't understand where you're headed. And when they don't understand something that's foreign to them, they're just going to want to bring you back to where they're at. It's just a natural interaction between humans.
It is. And I give the analogy to my clients as a bucket of crabs, and you've got this, like, it's halfway full of crabs, and you've got 2 or 3 or 4 climbing out the side. And what do the other ones do? try to pull them back down every single time. And some of the crabs will still go up the side, but only one or two will still continue and make it out because other ones get tired of being pulled back and they go, you know what, it's no use. So as much as we like to share, and that's been something I've really, and I'm still learning to a point, is to keep that to myself. Because if someone else isn't in a position, never mind where they are financially or beginning their dream, if they're not in a position where they can actually visualize something more for themselves, they can't possibly understand even half of what you're being given to do. And they go, but that's not possible because it's not possible for them in their mind.
I agree.
So
I was listening to someone the other day, and what he said, was really interesting. He said, you should never stop your flow of your unfolding of your life and your vision to listen to a person who has no idea who they are, let alone who you are.
Yes.
And that resonated a lot with me because that's true. This person could have no one outside of yourself really can understand your vision or even your reality because they're not in your shoes and they never will. And half the time you're listening to someone who doesn't even understand their own reality.
Exactly. Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been action-packed. I knew it would be. And Kent, I've said this in other interviews, but Kent and I really could talk the rest of the afternoon or evening and be here and just be, giving you so much. He's given you so much incredible experiences and information and insights. You may want to listen to this one more than once. So on that note, my dear friend, please tell our viewers how they can find you. How can they contact you?
Absolutely. My name is a little long, so I'm going to spell it out, but it's KentSteigerwald.com, SteigerWald.com. You could find me on Facebook at Kent Steigerwald. And I think my business page also pops up under Kent Steigerwald. You just got to find the page, and I think it's at Kent Steigerwald Fan. You could also type that in. Mostly on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, but that's my website, and maybe everybody will be seeing a little more of me all over the place soon. I'll be on YouTube and doing all that fun stuff as well. So.
Well, as soon as you do, let me know. I'll subscribe. Thank you so very much for your time and your energy and your candor. It is always a pleasure speaking with you. And this is our first formal thing, but we've spoken many times over the last few years. Just thank you very much, Kent.
Thank you. Really appreciate the interview, and it was really awesome. Like you said, we could talk all day.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful souls, that's Kent Steigerwald, and I'm going to read my notes to make sure I get it spelled right. I can spell it, but I want to make sure. That's Kent, KentSteigerwald.com. Okay?
You got it. Perfect.
Thank you again, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.